All right. Dude, did y'all see what the crap are y'all doing, man?
What's that called?
Brachioradialis.
What's the purpose of that?
That's lifting your arm up, man.
I think it gives you hand jerk or something. Like, that's a speed muscle.
Bam! Bam! Mine and corns are overdeveloped.
Well, they probably can't see it very well on the camera right now because you guys, if you're watching, you'll notice the camera angles are different because Tech Guy didn't properly stow his equipment and he burned his camera lens up on one of his cameras. So now we're working off of only 2 cameras today. So you've got one wide angle shot on corn and chili, and then you've got the dedicated camera on me. So, Blake, stow your dang equipment properly. The people are depending on you to have this stuff up and running. You have one job, Blake. You have one job.
That's going to have to come
I
out.
think
your
I've got a
check.
few more than one job.
That is going to have to come out of his check. You got one job to be the tech guy, okay?
My stomach's getting a little bubbling a little bit.
Yeah, and if you keep farting like that,
just a hair.
if you keep farting like that in here,
it's the stressing me out, and it's making it worse.
he stunk the whole studio up prior to us even going on the show here. No, did y'all see? Did y'all watch that that video that First Four made of the race day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did y'all see that Joker freaking puking?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That was John Van Zant right when he finished.
I don't know if he had finished or not.
Skinny guy?
It cuts to a clip of this dude doubled over and he's
Yeah,
just
I've seen it.
spewing
Yeah, man, were
out
you not
freaking
there?
puke.
He was
No, I wasn't
he
there.
missed the 4 hour cutoff. He was like 15 seconds over getting his last lap in, and he right when he crossed, I mean, he sent it. Just projectile. It was awesome.
I was so happy that they caught that on film and then put it in the little documentary.
Yeah, I
they
didn't
made.
realize you didn't watch
It was
that live.
excellent. No, that was a violent puking fit.
It was. It was rough.
I mean, that Joker, he had some pressure behind that, buddy.
That was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a good race. That was that was cool.
Are you over your puking fit?
Well,
The people missed you last week, man.
I mean, I'm telling you, dude, the food in North Korea is nasty.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was.
So
wasn't it?
when I had to go get your sorry butt again, of course, by the time I got there, you were already gone. But I stayed a few days and just ate all this, whatever, lo mein, a bunch of junk.
Lo mein chow.
Whatever it was, I don't
lo
know.
mein chow.
Bunch of stuff I couldn't pronounce. And
I like the mouth movements he puts on that.
yeah, look how he enunciated. Do it again.
Lo mein chow.
Wow.
So yeah, I ate some
man.
bad meat, and
Dude, you know one of the funniest languages that you'll ever hear speak that I've ever heard spoken? Vietnamese.
well,
It's such a ridiculous sounding language.
well, you know
It's like just a bunch of pops and pings.
the guy on Instagram y'all hate, Soy Tiet.
Oh, yeah.
He's Vietnamese.
Oh, I thought he was Filipino.
He's Vietnamese, man.
Boy, tit.
Soy Tiet.
I'm watching a documentary film by Ken Burns on the Vietnam War on Amazon Prime, and that's where I've been listening to these Vietnamese, or Vietnamese, however you want to call them. Listen to their language. It's a crazy language. Those are some tough people, though, man. Man, when you start looking at what the
That war was
the Viet
wild.
Cong and the North Vietnamese Army, what they did and how hard they freaking worked to win that war. I mean, them jokers that's a terrible unit. They figured out that the only way that they could take away the advantage of that the U.S. had of air power, you know, dropping napalm and dropping bombs on them, they figured out how to take that advantage away. What they would do is they would set an ambush on American forces, and they would not initiate the ambush until American forces were like freaking 10 yards from them. And then all of them would run in and just get so close to the American forces. You know, these jokers are fixed bayonets, not for show. They're running in so dang close, they're actually using bayonets. But they did that so that they knew that the American forces couldn't call in air support if they were right in there on them, man. I mean, them jokers were legit, son. Ho Chi Minh.
Mm-hmm.
Ho Chi Minh was
wild, man.
Yeah, he was a bad unit, son. Got to have respect for them jokers.
Yeah, that wasn't a good idea.
No, that's a heck of a film.
Mm-hmm.
That's a heck of a film, by the way. I would like to go to Vietnam one day. It looks beautiful. Top Gear did an episode where they traveled from south to north, traversed the entire country of Vietnam. It looks awesome. It seems like a fairly safe place to go visit now, too.
Yeah.
It's really weird that those people don't hold a bunch of animosity towards Americans anymore.
Yeah, it is interesting. The Japanese, Vietnamese, I don't know why they,
They just
be pretty easy to.
They just moved right along.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a cool place to go visit one day. But yeah, that film that First Form put out about the race, that was the pinnacle
awesome.
of the entire piece of content was that.
Oh yeah,
dude
John throwing
puking.
up. Yeah.
I mean, very rarely do you catch that on film. And most filmmakers won't have the balls to put it in the film if they even
better.
capture it. It made the video better for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that footage of Brooks falling out on the ground and cramping
dude.
up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
That
know,
was
it's
good.
funny when I didn't realize that had happened the way it did until I saw that video, because when you're down there with the megaphone, with Brooks when he falls out, I had been running with Brooks, and I had just let him go, and I started with Trip,
Yep.
and so you must have just passed. I think you passed me right then, didn't you?
Yeah, we did pass
Yeah,
you
yeah.
and Trip, yeah.
And then so I didn't know Brooks was down there cramping up
Yeah.
like a mug.
I got to run the last part of the race with Brooks and Aaron,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
it was just so amazing for me to watch the difference or the change that Aaron's made since he was ROP course number 1, rite of passage number 1. And so Aaron's a big dude. He came out to do the ROP course, and, he gets about maybe a little over a quarter of the way into this thing.
Yeah.
A little over, maybe close to halfway into the ROP course, and he just gets to the point where he can only move about a half a mile per hour. And but he never stopped. He trudged through the whole thing. He finished well, just really, really slow. And then for me to see that dude show up, what's it been? Maybe 6 months, 8 months later, and he's out there after spending 8 hours on the course out there. He's out there running, running into the finish line. And that joker's made some big changes in his life. And that's a choice. That didn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
That's what I try to tell people, man. That did not happen by accident. I'm assuming he came out to the ROP course and he was like, holy crap. I don't know how it impacted him, but he decided to change, obviously, a lot of things about his lifestyle. So that was really cool to get to run it in with Aaron and Brooks.
Yeah.
Especially with Brooks, being all dramatic and, acting like he's cramping and stuff. Cramps aren't even real, man.
Well, yeah, he started. He really disputed you on that.
Your mind, y'all always cramping and stuff. Your mind is just making these cramps up. They're not even real. So, well, here in a minute we're going to talk about Cornbread's first mountain bike ride.
All right.
There's a bunch of flies in here. Y'all seen all
imagine
them
that.
flies?
Lord of the dang flies
everywhere.
Yeah. But while we're at it, two of our partners were out at the race that we just got done talking about, and they are bringing this show to you today. Our first partner, a long time partner, Salty Britches. If you guys ever have had chafing, you know that it really sucks. It can be painful, especially if you are chafing between your legs and in your loins, and then you crap your pants. Yes, we've seen that happen. Bad chafing.
You get a bacterial infection.
Yes, bad chafing compared with duty. It will put you in the hospital, okay? So I can't help you stop crapping your pants, but Salty Britches can help you stop chafing. That way, when you do crap your pants,
You got a barrier.
You don't have to worry about getting this daggone infection from your doo-doo in your bloodstream, all right? So let me go ahead and tell you, if you like to run, ride bikes, work, if you're out in the salt water or you're a surfer or whatever it is that you like to do, and all your skin's rubbing up together, put on some of this Salty Britches before you start, okay? You can't put on anti-chafing cream after you're already chafing. It ain't gonna work for you at that point. Put it on before you daggone start. And it's gonna make your life a lot better. I promise you. So, getsaltybritches.com. We've been using this stuff for years and years. Awesome people, awesome product. I just love it. Saved my butt. I put it on my feet and everything. Keep me from getting blisters.
Save your butt, your loins,
Your feet, everything.
And that Body Glide crap, that stuff ain't.
It don't work.
No,
it don't work. They used to. So that's all we had when I was in Buds. All we had was them sticks of Body Glide. You put that stuff on before a 2-mile ocean swim. Pull your wetsuit on. You get 30 minutes, 20 minutes into the swim, it's already wore off.
Well, it's like deodorant too. I don't like how it.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
This stuff actually stays on you. Check them out at getsaltybritches.com. And if you don't get out and move and run and do stuff like that to where you generate some chafage, well, you probably need to quit being a stinking turd. And you probably need to start doing stuff that's chafing you up, man. Do it. Our other partner, Drink HOIST. Y'all know about HOIST. Son, they hammered this stuff at the race.
Dude.
Good night. Allie had hundreds of bottles of this HOIST out on the aid station table. It was gone.
I mean,
halfway through the dang race.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it's good stuff.
Yeah.
When you start sweating and you're all dehydrated and crap, like all of y'all, most of y'all are, you'll start craving this, man. Look, you get so dehydrated, you take you a swig of this right here, it's like biting into a daggone medium rare T-bone steak. I'm talking about it hits the spot. It hits the spot. Right? It hydrates you better than water. It's got everything your body needs: calcium, potassium, magnesium, sodium. It's even got a little bit of, it's got 70 calories in it, some carbs in it. It'll keep you going, man. I drink this stuff for about 4 days straight out on Cocodona. It's good, easy on your stomach. It tastes good. And just awesome people. Made in America. No preservatives. It's sweetened with real cane sugar, not your high fructose corn syrup and all that crap. Get you some, man. DrinkHoist.com. If y'all get anything out of this podcast, it makes a difference if you will support the companies that support this show. So instead of getting you old, tub of Vaseline to stop your chafing, go get you some Salty Britches. Not only does it work better, but you're supporting good American companies. All right? Comes in these little packs right here, too. I keep a bunch of these in I got these things stashed everywhere, dude. That's who's bringing the show to you today. Corn, did you have any chafage going on this morning on that mountain bike?
No, I put my Salty Britches on at the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Why'd you decide to take up mountain biking, man?
Well, me and Coney actually, my youngest son, we got a trail beside the house. It's an old railroad bed. You know what it is, the Silver Comet Trail. And it does about 70, close to 80 miles in Georgia, and then goes over to the Chief Ladega Trail in Alabama, and I think they got about 22 miles of trail. So he just, out of the blue, said, I want to do the whole Silver Comet Trail, and then it turned into doing the whole Chief Ladega Trail. And I mentioned it to you, and you said, well, I got a bike you can borrow. So there it is.
You been riding much?
I rode twice. Other than the day makes 3 times. And
gosh, man, today was only your third ride?
Yeah.
I thought you, dude, I gave you that freaking bike 2 or 3 weeks ago. Why ain't you been riding more than 2 times, man?
I've been working, grinding. You know
Good
what I
night,
mean?
cornbread.
Yeah.
You can put a flashlight on that thing and ride at night, man.
Nonetheless.
Dude, he's been in the gym.
I just
That's
gave
more
that joker
productive
a
than that.
bike 3 weeks ago. He ain't risen road but once a week, man. That ain't gonna cut it, Corn.
I seen him over there looking at that thing at your house. He was contemplating on just leaving it up there after that ride today.
What? Come on now.
But you've been riding on the pavement and stuff. But
Yeah,
today,
concrete.
today we took you off the pavement up a mountain.
That's a big difference.
What'd you learn up in there, son?
Every stick, gully, dip, and swapping them gears, I ain't got that down at all. But every step, I mean, pine cone, what you know is going to slow you down big time.
How'd your
dude.
body hold up?
If you don't stop, you ain't stuck.
You right about
You
that.
know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
Well, the worst part of it was going up the hill, going up the hills, and I would slide back in the seat, and my testes did not enjoy that one bit.
Well, I also saw you slide off the front of your seat and rack your loins on the top tube of your bicycle.
Well,
I think
he
you did
racked
that
his
on
rack.
purpose. I
Why
swear,
would somebody
you,
do that on
He
purpose?
did.
dude, I swear you did that on purpose because you know we were watching you.
He pulled up, he slammed that front brake, slid off.
And he acted like he slid off the front of his seat onto the top tube of
who
his
does
bike.
that? Don't nobody do that.
We look back at him. He racked
Come
his
on,
rack.
come
man.
on, CB.
Look, I'm a grown man, and I got stuff going on down there, and you got to be careful on that bicycle. I'm just telling you.
You asked Corn if he's going to ride again. Nope.
But no, that was the biggest deal. Was I was sliding back in the seat. That I realized, hey, on that bike, you got to have some core strength that you really ain't even thinking about.
Yeah,
when
you
you
do.
get off that pavement, because like I said, every dip, and gully, and I come up with my own names for them: stips and stops and hops, and it was way different. I got to noticing when I would get some decent speed going up a hill, but I was all over the trail like this right here. And I'm sure that was taking a lot of my momentum from me too,
Oh yeah,
you know.
for sure it was.
Yeah.
Well, you did terrible, man. You took forever.
Hey,
Chad said, Corn, get on that bike. We're going to be out here all freaking day, man.
Corn. I think you know he got into kind of the mode where I think was starting to think, well, maybe I'll just hike up this thing.
It crossed his mind.
I kept putting the pressure on him to stay on that bike, and you improved by the end.
oh yeah, yeah.
You improved greatly by the end.
I know-
Thanks to the tips I gave you.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, definitely. Thanks to the tips you gave me. I noticed I was hunched way over more than y'all was. Like I had a old hump in my back. You know, y'all had that straight bike.
Did he take that bike down there and get it fitted more for him? Oh.
No, he's got to go talk to my man Darren down at Shift. And Darren, if you're listening to this, man, my man Cornbread needs a bike fit. Yeah, that's gonna help a lot. But even then, when you're riding the bike, you have to intentionally keep that neutral spine in the seat. Even once you have the bike fitted, you're going to be tempted to still round your back.
Yeah.
And you have to intentionally maintain that neutral spine. Like, you know, every 20 or 30 minutes, you have to check in with your riding position because you're just naturally going to get slumped over in that thing. And that has a lot to do with core strength and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so tip to you guys, if you're getting into bike riding, which some fools said not long ago that they were going to do the TNGA. I remember people were talking about they were going, because I called somebody out.
You called Mailman out.
Mailman. Yeah, mailman. If you're going to do a long bike ride, get your bike fitted. Do y'all know the "Don't be a later turd" stickers? Do we still have those?
They're still in stock.
The later turd stickers. All right. That is from me riding 360 miles on a bike that wasn't fitted for me. My pinky was stuck like this for months. My hands were numb. I had zero grip strength. If you don't get your bike fitted, it actually kills the nerves in your hands. And it kills the nerve endings. And those nerves grow back really slowly. So get your bike fitted, man. I'm telling you, it's going to make a big difference. Are you going to do the Colorado Trail with us?
Oh, no. No, I got.
What?
I got the Silver Comet.
Say what?
I got the Silver Comet ride first, man.
You can do that in the spring, Bubba.
Are you doing that Silver Comet ride, Chad?
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do the Silver
doing
Comet.
The Silver Comet ride.
I did that on my light speed.
And then something else. G's wanting to do a half marathon, so I got to make time to help G out too.
Are you doing Colorado Trail Race?
Trail race?
Yeah, the Colorado Trail Race.
I don't know what that is.
In August. What I was telling you about this morning.
Oh,
You
well.
going to do it with me?
Well, it don't need to interfere with nothing else. I'll tell you that.
Well, look at your calendar, dummy.
No, look at our calendar.
Our calendar.
Yeah. You can't be doing that, man.
Well, we'll see about that. The Colorado Trail Race is 570 miles.
Is it literally a race? You're calling it
It's
a race,
a race.
now. Oh.
It is a race. It's a group start. It's a race. Yep.
Well, you can start
Totally
that whenever you
unsupported.
want.
Well, yeah, you can ride any of these routes anytime you
That's
want.
what I'm saying.
Just like
you ain't
any,
got to let it interfere with nothing else.
just like any foot race you run, you can run the route anytime you want.
Oh, yeah.
But it is a race, and there's a start date and tracking and all that. So we're doing that in August. Get your freaking mind right, son. What's up with you, Blake? You got anything to add up to this point?
No, man, I don't. Yeah. I don't
Still just being a turd?
Man, my gut's bubbling. Got them bubble guts.
What'd you do? Eat broccoli last night?
Peroxide.
Well, look, man.
I got something to add. You like this shirt I got on? This is my new favorite shirt.
Didn't somebody give that to you?
Yeah. I said
That's
I was
an
gonna
OG.
said I was going to wear it last week, but
That's OG Bojangles right there, son. Look at that.
Them people wasn't even from Cedartown, was they?
Dang, son.
Wasn't they from Florida or
they're
something?
from Florida. Carolyn and
How'd they
Don, yeah.
I remember. Yeah, how'd they get that?
I don't know.
That's
Cedartown.
old school,
They hooked
man.
me up, man.
Yeah.
My new favorite shirt. I said I was going to wear it last week, but I was in North Korea. So.
They were cool people.
Heck yeah, man.
Freaking hate Bojangles, man. You know why? Yeah, you know why I hate Bojangles.
When's the last
Because
time you had their tea?
every time I'm trying to go to the gym in the morning, there's so many fat hogs that live in Rome. They block an entire lane of traffic on the main road to turn into the drive-through on Bojangles.
I wish somebody just rear-end the mess out of them people. When
Well,
they do
somebody
that.
ran a car through the Bojangles.
Yeah, they did.
They still ain't fixed that.
I still accuse Chad of that, but
Yeah.
when's the last time you had their tea? That Cajun fillet biscuit.
I'm not eating
That
there.
bowberry
Look,
biscuit.
The
Chad
la-
and
no,
them
Look, man, that'll change your tune. So
Chad and them go buy Bojangles to get their dog food. They
Yeah, I know
they
they
go
do.
buy their
the last
dogs
time I went to
Bojangles.
Bojangles was to get the dogs some chicken strips, and we bought a chicken strip meal, and it came with a biscuit, and the dogs won't go eat the biscuit. So I said, let me try this biscuit. I took one bite of that thing, and I couldn't stop eating it. I couldn't, like,
that's what hurt that.
I couldn't stop eating it. It didn't have nothing on it either. I'm talking about it was just a dry
They
biscuit.
got that butter baked in
That's how that bowberry biscuit is.
with that little drizzle on top.
I call it the meth berry biscuit.
Yeah.
They put that drizzle on there, and you eat that thing, and you are bug-eyed, son.
Change your tune.
Yeah,
Chad needs to eat one of them for his next speaking engagement.
There you go, that meth berry biscuit, boy.
they're making everybody fat around here, and you know when you look at the
Nope.
look
Hey, nope.
hey
Nope.
when you look at the drive-through line in the Bojangles down here in Rome, any morning during the week, every other car is a police car. Every other car is
That's
a
just simply
police
not
or
true.
sheriff car.
Every other
just-
vehicle.
That's an extreme
Even the state-
exaggeration.
Rome is loaded with the police, boy.
Yeah, fats.
We need to go to the parking lot of a Bojangles of the morn and interview them. Let Chad and Chili interview the people sitting in the line.
What if we could get
That's a
in?
good- that's a good
That'd
idea.
be a good episode.
What if we could get in with Bojangles and they put on the headset, and when the people come through the line, they could act like they were working for Bojangles, but be interviewing them, just
There you
asking
go.
them.
I'll just
Do
start.
you know how many calories is in that meal you just ordered?
I'll
How
just
much do
start.
you weigh?
I'll just start my own Bojangles just to fat shame people. I'll buy a Bojangles franchise. We'll put it up, but we won't actually sell any food. We'll just have people come through and order food, and then we just fat shame them and send them away hungry.
Well, dude, you know our idea about going and doing some odd jobs. Why don't we? Well, that's episode 1, man. Bojangles. We'll go work the drive-through line. I bet we'd be good at it.
Night, son.
Them folks got to stay out of that mud, don't they, Corn? They get stuck.
That's right. That's right.
Stuck in the mud.
Look, I'm serious, man. Watch this. Is the camera on me, Blake? Y'all try this sometime. Watch this. They ain't nothing better.
Coffee and hoist.
All right.
There ain't nothing better.
You see how he's mixing that? Mm-hmm. Before this Lord of the Flies thing gets carried away, that thing he takes and mixes up in that glass jar. Y'all know the glass jar I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pickle jar.
Chad mixes this concoction of protein. It's probably got ignition, creatine, avocado,
Glutamine.
peanut butter, honey, guano,
Iguana.
the scales off of turkey feet, and he mixes it in this jar, and he drinks it. And not only does he drink it, but if you're out on mission with him, you have to babysit the jar because he puts it in places where it's going to bust. He'll put it on the dash.
That's to keep y'all sharp.
He'll put it in the dang the side of the door and that don't hold nothing. It's just leaning right there.
Yep.
So when you're driving, you got to stop and pick
Yeah,
up.
I know what you're talking about.
But
I did that
anyhow,
on
it's got
purpose.
drippage that comes down the side.
Well, it's always half full.
Yeah, and the flies love it. They love it. That's why the flies was in
That's
the
why
Suburban.
Corn has got his eye on that jar so much, because the flies love it.
Corn, you walked in my house this morning, 50 flies followed you in the
You
house.
made that concoction this morning. You made that, and the jar was probably laying there open.
I seen Chad in there making that smoothie. He pulled out 3 Zen pouches, busted them open, and poured that nicotine
Salt.
into his smoothie.
Nicotine salt.
Dad,
No, man.
Mom.
We did some training for a private group last week, and Corn was running support out of our work truck, our Suburban, and we get done at the end of the day, and me and Chili and Blake load up in that Suburban. Corn been driving it all day. I'm not kidding you. There were so many flies in that Suburban. You couldn't drive the vehicle. You couldn't safely operate the vehicle. There were so many flies in it.
He about got pulled over. We passed that cop. He about pulled us over. Unsafe.
You know why? You'd been down there with them people catching them catfish all day. That's why.
Them eating sides. No, that jar'd been in there with that drippage on it.
No,
And
look,
the flies
That's
was
them
feasting
catfish
on
people, man. He smelled like catfish.
that was a Friday evening. I got back in that Suburban on Sunday to drive to my mama's house, and there was still so many flies in it. We had to pull off the road, open all the doors, and fan the flies out of the vehicle to safely drive it. I've never seen so many flies in a dang vehicle right anywhere. Okay?
Dad, bull.
And then he walked in my house this morning, 50 flies followed him in.
Because he's eating that Bojangles all the time.
So, Lord of the Flies, yes, sir.
I'm just telling you, that after that concoction you make in that jar.
Well, all right. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the 307 podcast. We're glad you're here, whether you're listening on audio or tuning in live on video. What's going on with you? We're glad you're up in the studio with us today. What's this podcast titled?
Then comes the end or something like that.
It's supposed to be titled, Then the End Shall Come.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be titled.
I can check. I don't.
No, that's all right, Chili. I know what it's titled. I just asked Blake that to see if he's doing his dang job.
It's actually titled "Then the End Will Come."
It should be Shall Come.
Oh.
So you, good gosh, Blake.
You didn't say
You got
shall.
one stinking job,
You
man.
didn't even say shall.
Holy crap, man.
Look, you're so scatterbrained you don't even know what you're saying. Just talk about something, fire somebody up.
Good night. Yes. So a lot of our podcasts are titled "The End is Near," "The End is Here," all of this stuff. So today's episode, we're going to take a look at what the end is actually going to look like when it gets here. All right? And so we're going to take a look at Matthew chapter 24. Now, this is one of my absolute favorite places to go and read about the end of the age. And there are many prophecies in the Bible concerning the end of the age, but this is one that was spoken by Jesus Christ himself when his disciples came up and asked him, what are going to be the signs of your coming and of the end of the age? And Jesus actually gives them a pretty detailed answer. And so we're going to take a look here about what is it going to look like when the end of the age actually comes. Y'all cool with that, YouTube? Is everybody cool with that? I tell you what, I hope Dad's not watching live on YouTube today. My dad, when we get on here and we start talking about the Bible, and all these Hebes get in on the comments that hate it that we talk about the Bible, it just drives him insane.
Oh, he's on. He done hit the comment.
Dad, you better
Hebes.
You better slow down. I mean, it drives him wild. And you know what? I tried to explain to Dad the other day. I said, look, when you see these Hebes on YouTube that are trolling in the live comments, all right, I want you to understand who you're dealing with. I said, all right, Dad, you know when you pull out of the kind of the back road leading to Dad's house, right there on 101, and there's that gas station right there across the intersection.
Yeah.
I said, Dad, what you need to do is you need to go over to that gas station and walk into that gas station and look around you. Just stay in there for a little bit and look at the type of people that's coming in and out of that gas station. You know, the ones that are going back there to them little mini slot machines and buying their lottery tickets and their cartons of cigarettes, and they're just milling about. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all ever been to any of these look, Mr. C's is the same way. They've got a whole lineup of slot machines. And look, the type of people that are in here commenting on these lives and trolling, it's the same people you see playing a slot machine in the back of a grimy gas station in Silver Creek.
Well, they're a little worse than that, because at least the slot machine operators, they're just on there, like, just keeping to themselves, trying to make them extra dollar.
It's the same people. They're picking up their phone between pulling their gas station slot machine or scratching their lottery ticket off, and they're making they're finding a live chat to enter in on. So
Georgia Lottery.
I want to let y'all know, if you live in the country, go to your most redneck, grimy, trashy gas station, walk in there, look around you at the people that they ain't got no teeth to the point their lips is folded in. You know what I'm talking about? Hey, look,
Chad, that's why they eat Bojangles, man, because the biscuits are soft enough they can chew
A
them.
dang fold mouth.
What if the roof of their mouth
I
ever
watched
collapsed?
one's mouth fold one time.
Got that catfish mouth.
look,
Man, we down
2 out of
catfish, man.
2 out of
These
3
are
of them,
size.
they lips is folded in because they got no teeth to push their lips out, okay? That's the type of people that you're dealing with in a live chat on a YouTube, all right?
Catfish,
In
man.
that culture, them machines are called dang machines.
Dang,
Some
dang
people
machine.
call them
Yeah.
ding ding.
Ding, dang.
What the crap is that, man?
Where's making that racket?
Look, they're just playing for store credit.
Yeah, it makes racket, ding, dang, and all this and all that. when I was policing, we'd set up on them stores. You'd get some stuff out of them.
That's the type of people that are on the live chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the type of people I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when you get frustrated about a comment that you see on the YouTube live chat when we're talking about biblical things, just picture in your mind what that human being actually looks like. Their lips are folded in. They probably got no hair or scraggly hair.
Kenneth Hop said they got inverted lips.
Yeah. That's the type of people you're talking about here, all right? So settle down. Settle down, Dad. Just had to throw that in there.
Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We tell it how it is on here. So let's look at Matthew 24. What is the end going to look like? Jesus answered his disciples and said, "Take heed that no man deceives you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and will deceive many." So verses 4 through 6, here's verse 6, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So verses 4 through 6, Jesus is kind of setting this up, just talking about the course of the ages after he is crucified and resurrected and ascends into heaven. He's just saying this is how it's going to be. This is just the course of the age, all right? You're going to hear of wars, rumors of wars. There's going to be people that are coming in my name, and you're going to deceive many, and all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And I would say that's a pretty accurate description of the last 2,000 years of human history. Yeah. It's been filled with hundreds, if not thousands, of wars and rumors of wars and deception and all this stuff, right? But then in verse 7 and 8, he transitions and he begins to describe a different phase from just the course of the times. In verses 7 and 8, he begins to describe the beginning of the birth pangs. All right? And so I don't know, I've never seen a woman in labor before, but this is the reference he makes, is birth pangs, pangs, whichever one you want to call it. But when a woman starts to have these birth pains or contractions, it kind of starts, and it gets progressively worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of feel, oh, yep, there's one. But son, as time goes on and that joker's ready to give birth, them jokers is rough, son.
Right.
All right, I've never witnessed it before. I ain't witnessing it. I am not going to watch a woman birth a child. Ain't doing it, okay? If my wife ever has a child, ain't being in there. There ain't no reason for me to be in there, all right?
You have to be in there.
There's no reason for me to be there.
You're going to be in there.
Why would you?
You're going to be in there.
Why?
She's going to want you in there, and you're going to be in there.
It ain't my job to be in there. That's the doctors need to be in there.
She might need something. You can comfort her and be right there with her, support her.
I'll have one of her friends in there with her. Were you in there when Caitlin had a baby, Blake?
Yeah.
What about the other baby, Blake? Both of them?
Oh, yeah.
Describe these birth pangs to me, man.
Well,
you've witnessed them.
Yeah, I mean I think once they start, they're pretty rough from the start. They might progressively get worse, but I mean, yeah, I've not experienced it. You can see they kind of come and go. They get roughed, and it's like they kind of lax off, and then the next one hits a little bit harder. Then you got a little break, and before you know it, they're back to back. Number 10.
We should have had a woman in here today that had been through this, that could have described this to us.
Everybody keeps saying the sound's out.
Sound's out.
Sound.
This camera's flashing over here. Says no card.
That's fine.
Okay.
The sound on what? Be more descriptive, YouTube. The sound's out. Well,
now they're all a bunch of other ones saying the sound is fine. They probably just
okay.
ain't got
Well,
service.
yeah, there's those gas station people. All right, that's those gas station people again.
Daggum no lips, can't even hear anyway.
Freaking ridiculous gas. Get back on your dang ding machine, man. You got to afford that next carton of cigarettes, all right?
Holy crow.
Jokers chewing the cud, ain't they? You see them all in there chewing the cud when they're on them dangs. Like shaky legs.
Smacking their lips.
Yeah. So we transition from the course of the times to the actual beginning of the birth pangs in verse 7 and 8. For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of the sorrows, and that's that word, the beginning of sorrows, i.e. travail, which is the sign given, indicating there will be a cessation of travail pains or birth pains in preparation for the birth of a new age to come. All right? So, when do you guys, in known history, if you had to just take a wild guess, when would you think or maybe say that these birth pangs started? Kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places, globally, diverse places.
Well, I mean,
if you had to guess.
from the beginning of the age, the beginning of people, once people started there being enough of us, all that started. But, I mean, like I always say, the latter days means after Christ. That started as soon as he departed the earth. I mean, I wouldn't like it is progressing like you're getting at, like it's and that's what it's going to do, just like birth. I mean, it's going to, maybe come in kind of cycles, but each progress and progress and progress, and then finally it'll be the time. But, I mean, so it's...
Well, I think Chad's hinting to what he always hints to is that,
now
technology has made this process
that's
expedited, and I think that's true.
It's another progression, yeah, exactly.
But I do think that it has always been going on anywhere there has ever been humans.
Well, it has.
There has been this stuff going on, but
it has progressed, yeah.
Yeah, I do think it has progressed.
I would say, for me, as I thought about this, where we see the first time in known history of a shift from kind of, again, describing in verse 6, local wars and rumors of wars, kind of, but I'm assuming he's talking about localized, because in 7, then he talks about kingdom against kingdom, and he piles on the famines, pestilence, and earthquakes in diverse places. So, to me, the beginning of these birth pains, if I look at history, I would say, if I had to guess, the best example of these contractions beginning would be World War I, where we see global war for the first time in human history. We see kingdoms rising against kingdoms, and then we also see the beginning of these massive, widespread famines and pestilences and natural disasters and things of that nature. So
long before that, right?
But World War I was a distinct transition. There had never been anything like that prior to that. You see what I'm saying? That was the first occurrence,
and that's going to continue to be the case.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the thing.
That's the beginning of the birth pains.
Well,
this is my opinion.
Ancient kingdoms.
Yeah, I mean, I think
we're allowed to speculate here.
Well, and I think that's subjective. I mean, it's going to be subjective to anybody.
Ancient kingdoms were still regional, Blake. It was still regionalized. That's what makes World War I so different. It was the entry into this new level of of wars, even a new level of pestilence and plague, because now these things can be spread around that time frame, can be spread across the globe because of air travel and also technology. There's just nothing to compare to World War I prior to that.
Yeah.
So that's your take on it going into diverse places.
Plague.
Is that what you? Thinking?
That was a little before that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean,
Yeah, because that's what sticks out the most to me, in diverse places.
Yep.
Like that's far from local.
It's no longer regionalized.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that's why I go to that World War I as, okay, as we read through this, that to me makes the most sense of this transition from 5 and 6 being just the course of the age now to the beginning of the actual travail. That's my personal opinion on it. And we have seen, when we talked about earlier, those contractions, how they come and then they let up. And then they come again, and then they let up. And we're seeing that. We saw that with World War II. Mm-hmm. I think that we see the pestilence and plagues just in our recent times, and I think that we will continue to see more global world scale war, even potentially in our lifetime. That will get increasingly worse.
Yeah, the things don't go away; they just add on. But once you've got world wars, if we're going to use that term, then you'll continue to have those, and then you'll get something new.
Well, I get you trying to kind of pinpoint a start, but one thing I'll say too is I've never been too concerned with like that shift and that shift. I mean, if you're talking about is it going to progress, what's the progression like? Well, yes, every day, literally every day that passes, you're closer. I mean, we're a heck of a lot closer than we were in World War I. They're closer the next day after World War I kicks off. And so the problem, though, is you start saying, well, man, look how much we've progressed. Look at today compared to then. But you still, I mean, and this is what he's trying to tell you. You don't know when it's coming. Like, yes, we're way ahead of where we were, but you have no idea what's ahead of you.
Oh, yes.
All you know is you're closer than you were.
Well, that's,
you could be
we'll actually
2,000 years away.
We'll actually read that here in just a minute.
Because
you're not going to pinpoint the day, but there is a progression that can be identified in the description that Jesus Christ gave us of the end of the age, and that's what I'm trying to identify.
But I think at the same time, you don't even need that to know that we're closer than we were, because we're closer than we were.
Yeah.
But you still don't know what's in front of you. But that's why nothing changes, like nothing should change on where you're at.
So we go from kind of the course of the times. Now we go into the starting of the travail, or the beginning of the sorrows. And then we see in verse 9 another aspect of the beginning of this time where the contractions begin, where the earth is being prepared to birth a new age. We see another interesting aspect of this time. Jesus says, "Then they shall deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." Now, who is Jesus talking to here? Predominantly. Who did Jesus speak to?
He's talking to the disciples here, right?
Yeah. The body.
Jewish people. His people, right? That's predominantly who Jesus came for.
Yeah.
Was the people of Israel, God's people. So he's talking to Jewish men here, and he's saying, they shall deliver you up to be afflicted and kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. What was the most prevalent fulfillment of this in our human history?
Holocaust.
World War II. So we see this is another huge aspect of knowing, okay, we are now in the contractions. We've moved to a different stage. A persecution of God's people delivering them up, killing them wholesale, and the fact that they should be hated by all the nations of the world for my name's sake. Now, does this apply? I think this also could apply to Christians in various cases.
Well, you think Jews are hated for Jesus' namesake?
Well, that's another question. As Jesus is saying this, he says, for my name's sake. Could that, he's speaking to Jewish men, could that be implied for Yahweh's sake?
Well, I mean, that's what...
The God of the Bible?
That's what always gets interesting about...
So is this yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Jews and Christians and I mean, nobody taught... Well, no, I mean, I very rarely hear anybody say what you just said about who Jesus was talking to in that. Jews.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very rarely said, acknowledged, thought about. That's what I hate. No one thinks about any of that. But, I mean, it's kind of hard to say that that's not who he's talking to.
Well, yeah.
And then that makes it interesting when you look at the whole course of Jewish history, and then you hear, and he says, for my name's sake. But once again, it's like I see all this, it seems to me, another thing I'm confused about, all the separation of Jesus and God the Father. When
it's the same.
I mean, the point is that it's the same.
Yep.
He's the same. Like that's, I don't know. It's interesting.
So yeah, when I read this in verse 9, I think most people want to read this and then they want to apply this to the persecution of modern day Christians. Mm-hmm. They're not applying it to the persecution of Israel and God's people. When I read verse 9, I'm looking at this sign that Jesus identifies here as being persecution against Israel, the nation of Israel, and against the Jewish people, which we saw beginning in World War II and has now continued in diversifying levels of intensity, even to this day. Now we see, obviously, what's going on with Israel, and we also see progressively the nation of Israel being hated by all nations, to include America. We see how many people here in the United States, if you scroll social media, you see how many people now are choosing to turn their back on the nation of Israel. Even here in the United States, which we have traditionally been Israel's biggest ally. That's changing.
So are you saying that they are hated because they are Jewish and not because they follow Jesus?
Because of the God, I'm saying this verse is saying because for my name's sake, because they are a nation set apart, following or worshiping the God of the Bible, Yahweh.
That's what I was going to say too, though. So, not only was he talking to the Jews, but they followed him. The disciples followed him, and I think that's where the for my namesake comes, because they are followers of Christ. They believed he is who he is.
Yeah, I mean, there is a question on who he was,
Yeah, what's the emphasis on the Jewish or the follower of Christ? And if it's on the follower of Christ, then that would apply to
modern-day Christians also.
Us now. So. Well,
and there's no question. I mean, that's always been interesting to me. I would say confusing, like even the fact that, the Jewish people in general being God's people. I mean, that's an interesting thing to follow through history and try to understand. I mean, and how everybody else plays into that, how we play into that. I mean, it's.
And also what they consider Jewish might be a little different than what we consider Jewish today also.
Well, even just the fact that there's a God's people and it's not everybody, right? I mean, that's set apart like that. I mean, that's all been hard to understand. And I mean, I don't think anybody.
Yeah. I think there's I think there is a logical explanation for Yahweh, the God creator of the universe. I think there's an explanation for why he's set apart a certain group of people for himself on the earth. We're not going to go into that today. But verse 9, whether you take this as the persecution of Christians or the persecution of the Jewish people, which is the way I read it personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We see that is another aspect of the beginning of the birth pains, which is leading us, into this next level of awareness of the coming of the end of the age. And so we saw, if we apply it to the Jewish people, we saw that beginning in World War II specifically, and I believe that we will see another probably example of that in the near future.
Another world war, you mean?
Another world war, and specifically persecution of Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, we'll move on to verse 10. Verse 10, and then many shall be offended and betray one another and hate one another. So now we're talking about many, the peoples of the earth, shall be offended. People are, we're gonna be living in an age where people are easily offended. There's going to be widespread betrayal, distrust, and hatred for one another. And again, when we're talking about this frame of time, we have moved from regional, isolated incidents to now global, widespread description of humanity as a whole. Many shall be offended. Well, that sounds familiar to me. You about near can't say nothing these days without somebody getting offended about something. Many shall betray one another. Well, that sounds very similar to me. The level of trust that we have in each other as mankind, in our whether it's each other or our elected officials or anything around us, the level of trust that exists is freaking just, it's unbelievable, man. Like, even just in my lifetime, it's unbelievable. And the level of freaking hate that exists is hard to describe. So we're just seeing here, as Jesus is describing these times, these things are going to increase in comparison to other times in known human history. Verse 11, and many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. And because iniquity, this is 12, shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. So here's another aspect. Many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. So, false prophets, in addition to the false Christs, there will be false prophets throughout the Christian era, or the era that we are living in now. I would say that this prophecy has been abundantly fulfilled more than ever in our recent years. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. Well, yep. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. So in spite of all this that's going on, there are going to be some who do endure to the end, even unto their salvation. All right. Let's look at verse 14. And here this is an interesting verse right here. I want to get y'all's take on this. Because now we're in the birth pains, but then in verse 14 it says, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all of the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." That's an interesting, it's always been interesting to me how throughout the course of the age, there have been so many predictions of we're right on the cusp. Like this thing's about to get wrapped up, right? People have been saying this for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Like, people have been thinking, it's got to be over soon. It's got to be over soon. But then you have verses like this, "The gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all of the world as a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." How could you be predicting or anticipating the end coming 200 years ago when this specific thing right here was literally impossible to achieve? This verse 14 was impossible to achieve until recent modern times. Y'all see what I'm saying? What's y'all's take on this?
I mean, from what I don't understand the question. What's your take on the gospel needing to be preached to the entire nations?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question about that. Does that mean that to me that sounds like the end won't be here until every man has heard?
Well, doesn't necessarily say every single man. It says unto all nations.
That's why I have a question, because unto all nations, well, I mean, yeah, because there's little tiny nations that people have tried to go to that they kill every time they get within close proximity, and it's like, well, either those people have to be wiped off that island or they've got to be reached at some point. Like, I don't know. It's odd. It's like, I don't know how literal that is, that what's every nation? What is every man? What is it? I don't know. It's
what is the whole entire world?
Yeah. I don't, because you could argue it, especially with social media and technology and how advanced even third world countries are in some ways compared to what they used to be, that, it has been preached to the nations, to the globe. But
that's a good question. Do you think that's been achieved?
Yeah, I think depending on your definition of it, you could argue it's been achieved, or is being achieved basically in this moment, pretty much now with the way technology is. No, not every man has heard, but that's not going to happen because people die before they hear it, So I don't know. I think you could argue it's been achieved.
What do you think, Corn?
I think a lot of people can read this and do read it and try to look for the opposite of what's actually being explained here, and just to say, oh, yeah, it's not going to happen right now. The world, whatever they say, is not going to end right now.
Yeah.
I think when it's like bare bones, this is what's going on, and it is being preached, like brought forth to, and like everybody is getting it maybe simultaneously by whether it's multiple people or whatever, whether it's just the average Joe on the street. That's sort of my take on it. When it's, when
okay, I see what you're saying.
When it becomes like what's the word here? Everyone's sort of in agreement that, hey, I'm not saying all the people of the world, but there's just a mass conglomerate saying, hey, this is what's up.
Yeah. What about you, Blake? Do you think that's been achieved? We're allowed to speculate here, guys.
I don't know. I mean,
Well, I don't know how to speculate.
There is.
I don't know what even achieved fully would look like.
Well,
I
you already
think there
gave
are
your
some
answer.
languages and stuff that the Bible hasn't been translated into, and that doesn't mean they haven't heard the gospel, because someone could have verbally given it to them. So, I don't think that this verse means that every single individual person will have been fed that. I mean, there's other scripture to back up that the law is written on their heart, and they inherently know right from wrong, and so that could be a whole nother, discussion. But I think specifically, it could be, but I don't know. I couldn't speculate one way or the other, but I think it's possible that it is. And I think that also this list that Jesus gives through all of these verses, I don't think is a comprehensive list. I don't think he's saying that, like, hey, be on the lookout for this, and watch. But they're asking him, when are you going to come? And in my opinion, like what I get as a whole is like, hey, things are going to get rough. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. But the gospel is going to be spread everywhere, and everyone will have had an opportunity. Like it's not unreasonable to think that someone was just totally pushed aside and had no chance of knowing me at all.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, and I think when when you're laying out a list like that, they were probably sitting there hearing that and going, well, dang, that's happening now.
Yeah.
Dang, there's wars now. Dang, there's plagues now. I mean, I think it would have hit them like, oh, this could be any time. I mean, a lot of this stuff he's saying isn't, like, we don't have to wait on it. Like, it's here.
What they thought was regional might have actually seemed much bigger to them at the
time.
time.
I mean, like it was the world.
Yeah, because the world was not even all known.
Yeah, so, I mean, you hear that at the time and you go, well, so you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this, all of this stuff is real interesting to think about and study. But some people will look for these things more than they look for Jesus, and that's where the problem becomes. Yeah. They see, they hone, all right, here's this list, and all right, has this, and it's like, it's okay to do that in spurts and study that passage of Scripture, but a lot of people look more for the Antichrist or for these things than they do the actual Christ.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at when I said a lot of people try to line this up and say, okay, all right, this ain't what's going on.
Yeah, but they've got a check box and they're going down comparing it.
And do you think, a question for all three of y'all, is he talking specifically about what he just said when he says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world? Specifically, everything that you just read, this gospel here, because we was talking the gospel of Jesus came and is exactly who he is and whatnot. Is he talking specifically about this when this is preached all around the world? You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world.
Well, that's a good question. The thing about that is, though, this specific account that Jesus is giving in Matthew 24 is not
gospel.
What is categorized as the gospel.
Right.
That's a good question.
Well, if you back up, like in Matthew 23, he's talking to the scribes and Pharisees, and he's telling them, about works. Don't do according to their works, for they say and do not do. And so he's going through this, a lot of stuff to the scribes and Pharisees, and then it shifts into 24. And it says, then he left the temple after that, and his disciples came up to him, and then that's when they posed the question. They ask him, when is all this stuff going to happen? What's going on? And then he presents this list, and so he might even be referring to the chapter before this. But
yeah, and I have a note here on that, on verse 14. This gospel of the kingdom, in quotation marks, is simply the gospel. It is recorded in the parallel account in Mark 13, verse 10. The commission to his followers by Christ was to preach the gospel to every creature, Mark 16:15, and to be witnesses unto me unto the uttermost parts of the earth. This note here is saying this has not yet been accomplished, so not yet has the end come. Through the worldwide missionary movement and the global preaching of the gospel by radio and literature, it must be close. So this interpretation by the commentator of this particular Bible that I have is saying the gospel of the kingdom is simply meaning the gospel as we know it, the gospel of who Christ actually is. And he's not talking specifically about what we're reading right here and referring to this specific portion of Scripture as the good news. The good news is simply the gospel as we know it as the gospel, right? So verse 15, here's another really interesting part of this. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then let them which be in Judea flee to the mountains. Let them which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, nor let him which is in the field turn back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with a child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall come great tribulation, such was not since the beginning of this world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. Now, one thing that's interesting here is you will hear some people talk about Matthew 24 as if everything in Matthew 24 has already been fulfilled and that this is not actually talking about the end of the age, meaning the end of the world as we know it itself. A lot of people, and I have actually heard the guys on Unashamed, Phil Robertson and Jace Robertson and those guys, they look at Matthew 24 as all of this has already been fulfilled in human history since the death of Christ in ancient days, that there's already been an example of this abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. They don't think this is talking about the end of the age. My argument to that is how could this not be talking about the end of the world as we know it when you take into consideration verses 21 and 22, for then there shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of this world to this time, no, nor shall ever be. So we're reading here that when whoever's on earth sees this abomination that causes desolation spoken of by Daniel, we're reading here that after that instance, the freaking crap that is about to unfold is unparalleled in the history of the earth. And 22 says, except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved. Meaning, unless these days that are coming after that abomination that causes desolation, unless God... And unless if he wouldn't cut them short, that the entire human race would be killed. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So how can you say that this is talking about something that's already happened when this clearly says, in reference to the time after this abomination that causes desolation, is going to usher in a unparalleled tribulation that's unparalleled and will never be replicated in the entire history of the earth, and that if it wasn't cut short by the return of Christ, that the entire human race would perish.
Well, that
hasn't happened yet.
That's what they're saying we're in right now. And that must be what they're saying we're in now, and will be cut short when Jesus comes back. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're saying? Because they're saying that's already happened, and then
yeah, they're saying that's already happened, and maybe that is what they're implying.
Like, so
that's
what
what
are
we're
we
in
in
right now. Yeah,
yeah. What are we in right
But
now? Then is my question.
there has been no occurrence after this singular event that is unparalleled in the history of humanity.
Well, I suppose their argument would be that that's right now, and what we're going through right now with the technological advancements is the unparalleled part.
It could be.
I don't know.
It could be their argument. I've just heard them say that, but I think it's a.
So what do you disagree with?
I do not agree with that.
You just don't think
I
that's-
think this is. I don't think this has happened yet.
The abomination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a little note in my Bible in parentheses after verse 15 says, When ye shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, in parentheses it says, Whoso readeth, let him understand. So what is this abomination of desolation? Have you guys done any research on that?
Yeah, in Revelation, but I mean, I don't. How specific are you wanting? Like, I don't know exactly what it will look like, or.
Well, it's an interesting thing because, yes, it does go to Revelation. Again, a lot of this that we're reading ties into the book of Revelation. So in Revelation 13, verse 14 and 15, the abomination of desolation refers to the image of the beast, which shall be set up by the Antichrist and his false prophet as an object of enforced global worship. So this,
yeah, but if you're asking what that is, I don't.
This is some sort of image that is set up in the temple, in the Jewish temple, is set up by a man, some sort of image, and basically it will be the object of worship for all of the world.
And that could certainly just be, Islam taking over the Jewish temple and setting up everything of their own there, and then worshiping that out of that place, and then that being, I mean, that seems to fit that fine. One
of the interesting things about this is if you study on this and you understand it as this image of Antichrist, whatever that looks like, being set up in the Jewish temple as an object of worship for the entire world. Well, for this to come to pass, we would have to see the reconstruction of the Jewish temple in Israel for this to come to pass. If we're understanding this right, that temple doesn't exist, and they can't rebuild that temple because the Muslims have built a mosque on the site of that temple called the Dome of the Rock.
It's the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's there.
Yeah, that's there.
I mean, that's there.
So
being worshipped out of now.
That's true.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at earlier.
Well, that's true.
I mean, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in that location, and a graven image has been, put up, and it's being worshipped out of now. And, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is being, people want to tear that down all the time, and
yeah,
I don't know.
The Jewish people don't like that mosque being there.
No, sir. And the Muslims did not like or don't want a temple there.
I think to get the full understanding of this, you have to look in multiple other places in Scripture. A note I have here: this will take place according to Daniel's prophecy, which you should go back and read if you want to understand this, because Jesus specifically mentioned that, spoken of by Daniel the prophet. After the prince shall come, which has made a seven. See, and this is another interesting thing. When you look at Revelations and you look at Daniel, it does talk about this 7-year treaty with Israel, allowing their ancient temple to be rebuilt in Jerusalem and their worship worship rituals to be reestablished, the Antichrist who establishes that treaty with Israel and allows that temple to be rebuilt, he will break the covenant in the midst of the week, that's after 3.5 years of the treaty period, and erect his abomination of that causes desolation in God's temple, which is a great idol image, and require all of the world to worship it. So if I'm the way that I've always understood this is at some point in history, we don't see how it could possibly happen now. We don't understand how there's possibly a scenario where the Dome of the Rock, that mosque we were talking about, is destroyed.
Oh, you don't?
And then Israel decides to come in or gets permission to come in and rebuild their temple on that site.
Oh, I do. It's funny how difficult that would be, because that's been, I mean, go back to the Crusades. I mean, that's been the conflict really central to the entire world, even in modern times geopolitically, but all the way back to there. So, but it's also funny to look at how easy it possibly would be to even have it happen, because yes, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is there now. Jews are separated now. They've got their own area, right? But they want that. Yep. That's all they want. They throw it all away for that. Well,
they want to rebuild that temple really bad.
And during the Trump administration with Jared Kushner and the Abraham Accords, a ton of peace treaties were being done, right? So that seemed impossible. Everyone said they were impossible. But even before that happened, it's like you can comprehend how actually easy it would be. I mean, all you...
Right before this Gaza stuff happened, Israel and the Saudis were working together on the plans
to build it,
to do that. And Iran, which doesn't talk or didn't talk with the Saudis, that's what all this was about in the start.
Yeah, and the U.S. is heavily tied in with the Saudis. Yeah, and that's who they need.
They not just talks, like they were breaking it down, going to start designing it and everything.
Yeah, that's official government document plans. I mean, you can so it's not hard to see, especially when you see the Abraham Accords happening. Say those just continue to happen, and then all it would take. I mean, I know this is oversimplifying it, but really it is simple. It's actually not inconceivable. All that would need to happen is the U.S. tied in with Saudi Arabia. All they have to do is strike a peace deal with Iran, even if they go back on it, but for a time. That's not inconceivable. You could give them all kinds. We already have. I mean, and then you work on the plan. You start instituting the plan to rebuild the temple, and then, like, if you want to talk about what happens in the middle of it, well, then just whatever falls apart, and then this is put in there, boom, boom, boom. But no, actually getting that started. It's inconceivable because of the thousands of years of fighting over that very thing. However, it's actually not inconceivable at all. It was already happening, and you could argue about why that fell through and the U.S. involvement and why that fell through. But no, it's not. It's not inconceivable at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if we're ever around and we see the reconstruction of that temple getting underway, we need to keep an eye about that, right?
Absolutely.
Well, it was interesting,
because if we're understanding this properly, that temple has to be rebuilt in order for this to come true. Yeah, and another thing this points to also is the idea of a global government and a global religion.
That'll kind of need to be pretty far along, even further along than it is now, for it to really work how you would imagine it has to work.
A lot of people think I think there are a lot of secular people out there that think the idea of a global religion and a global government is a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's being promoted as that.
Yeah, because you think if you had global leadership, global religion, you think it would end all wars, and that it would unite the world on the climate agenda, on ideals around morality, on the dollar, on all that stuff. I think people see that as like that's the only option to reach peace on earth.
Yeah.
Is to have an established global religion and global government.
Yeah, and well, it's also being painted as if you're against global one world government, then you're against global peace, which I'm not. Nobody is, but that's not how you're going to achieve it. That's global enslavement is not global peace. I'm not saying you're going to achieve global peace through what we're doing now, but I'm telling you that ain't the answer.
The problem all resides with humanity. When you consolidate government, when you have a consolidation of power, guess what you're doing? You're consolidating evil. Because man is evil.
Yeah, you're consolidating power, literally.
Any consolidation of power where human beings are the arbiters of power is a consolidation of evil. That is why it was God's plan to set up the world as multiple different nations. That's why he split them all apart at the Tower of Babel.
Well,
he split it all up because that's what the Tower of Babel was. It was a consolidation of power, therefore a consolidation of evil, and God said, "No, we ain't doing this. Y'all, we are breaking this up." And that's the reason that God's plan was for the world to be individual nations spread across the face of the earth, because it deconsolidates power. That's the purpose of it. That's God's plan. And any agenda to promote a world consolidated government or religion is Satan's plan. It is the exact opposite of God's plan for humanity on earth.
Yeah, I mean, that's why anytime we do talk about government or political ideas, it's why generally the through line through it all is deconsolidation of power. It's why when you have a huge federal government in the U.S., it's, well, let's break it down to state power and remove this power from the federal government, take it back. But then even then, it's like, why would you stop there? I mean, within the state, you would then be riled up about the state taxes and the state regulation, and you say, well, let's break it down to county again. I mean, just as far down as you can go. As far as you can go, let's keep deconsolidating. I mean, that's why pretty much a political ideology, that would be the heart of it. And
100%.
You're seeing less and less of that and more of global cooperation. But it's funny, the global cooperation does sound good, but what's it for? And what are you cooperating for? And what you're cooperating for is through the UN, the global surveillance state, the global enslavement state, so you can institute something like that. That's the point of it.
Speaking of surveillance state, Blake showed me these freaking cameras.
Did you see it?
That they're putting up. No, I didn't even look for it when I walked down.
On the left? Yeah.
They're putting up these cameras on the roads around here, man.
What?
Even the country roads.
I think I saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
What are they for?
He took a picture, or he showed me a picture of one.
Yeah, I looked them up. It said that they are license plate scanners. That's what it said.
Yep.
But they're just right on the side of the road. It's a black pole, black camera. It's got a solar panel on top. There's one down by Dad's road, and then I saw one this morning.
Really?
Up at his house, yeah.
Yep. We are moving. I mean, that is 100% the direction that everything is going. Chili's exactly right. This is already established in places like freaking China.
In that article,
you can't move in China without being filmed.
But in that article, it's saying it's going to keep the citizens safe.
Oh yeah,
so
that's all. It's all in the guise of safety.
Yeah, I was okay with it once I read that. Well, if I'm gonna be protected by
your
it, then
government is here to keep you safe. Everything all the decisions your government makes are to keep you safe. Verse 22 says, unless those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, meaning all humanity would be wiped out unless they were shortened. It's always amazed me that the human race hasn't went extinct. It's always amazed me that we have not went extinct, especially in modern times.
It wouldn't be that hard.
Since we now have the power at the push of a button to basically exterminate all of humanity, it is amazing that we haven't went extinct. All we do is fight and bicker and kill each other and destroy the things around us, especially modern man. Well, we're seeing there's going to be a point that no flesh would be saved, but Christ says, for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. In verse 23, then, if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is the Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders. I thought that was interesting. Insomuch that if it were possible, they would even deceive the very elect. And then Jesus says in 25, behold, I have told you before. He's saying, if you're alive when you're freaking seeing this, and these people are rising up and presenting themselves as these divine beings, and they're performing these great signs and wonders, and you're like, whoa, that's supernatural. He must be a God. He must be a Christ. There's no way a human could perform the things that they're doing. He's saying, behold, I've told you before, you're going to see some weird crap. Don't believe it.
You know, it's interesting too that he even that's always been interesting to me. That how does it worded right there? It says even the elect.
It says, for there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, if it were possible, that they shall deceive even the very elect.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I guess I suppose that's saying it's not possible.
Yeah. Yeah, he says if it were possible. Yeah. But
it's interesting.
It's obviously going to be some pretty wild stuff.
Well, I sit here and think all the time about how easy it would be. Like, you know, David Blaine?
Yeah.
Or Chris Angel?
Yeah.
You know how easy it would be for them to amass a following if they said, I'm God?
Yeah.
Because they can do stuff that you can't explain. You don't know what they're doing. They can do this. They can float. They can do this crap. I mean, you know, like, it's not even hard to imagine that, like, dudes like that know all this magic trick stuff pretty easy if they wanted to.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I personally think that these, as Jesus is referencing these false Christs and false prophets that are showing great signs and wonders, I want to speculate and say that these individuals who are deceiving the world are actually going to be supernaturally energized by Satan. That they are actually going to be performing supernatural things that are real, repeatable, and indescribable. That it won't be a magic trick. It'll be like, holy crap.
Like when you look back in
Moses, whether it be coming back from the dead, or we see an example of, if you read in Revelations, we see an example of this figure that is the Antichrist being wounded in the head, and actually dying and coming back from the dead. See, it's really weird how all Satan ever does is he takes God's ideas and tries to replicate them. The Antichrist is going, according to the book of Revelations, is going to perform this miraculous recovery, essentially a resurrection back from the dead. I think these are the signs and wonders that you're going to see. Like, holy crap, we all saw on film, this Joker was just shot through the head, was pronounced dead, and now here he is again. He came back from the dead. Like, you can't dispute that, man. I think they're going to be supernaturally energized by Satan. I think that Satan is going to become so active in this realm during these last days because he sees that his time is so near to the end that we're going to see things happening. Whoever's here is going to see things happening that are unparalleled, that they could have never imagined seeing happening. And that's my speculation on that. But then we read, going back to verse 22, he said, unless those days should be shortened, here's how the days are shortened. in verse 27, for as the lightning cometh out of the east and shineth even to the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Now, why on earth did Jesus say that? Why did he put verse 28 in there? For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. And he's saying this directly after he's describing his coming. I wondered that. And I look back at Revelation 19. Let me read this to you in Revelation 19. Remember, Jesus in Matthew, we just read about, he's describing when he comes back, as lightning comes out of the east and shineth even to the west, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, let's look at the parallel description of the coming of Christ in Revelation 19. This is John the Revelator writing, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him was called Faithful and True. And in righteousness he doth judge and make war. And his eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name was called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goes a two-edged sword, that with it he should smite the nations and should rule over them with a rod of iron. And he treadeth the winepress of the fierceness and the wrath of Almighty God. And he had on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And here's this is interesting. This is the part that gets to Jesus talking about where the eagles are gathered. Well, wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. And I saw an angel, this is back in Revelation now, and I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great God, that you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great. That's what he's talking about right there. That's why Jesus put that in there. For wherever the carcass is, there will all the eagles be gathered together. He's talking about this.
Well, so who are the eagles?
The eagles are essentially freaking buzzards, man.
Vultures?
Yeah. Yep. Eagles are actually vultures. So the metaphor describes carn-eating birds swarming over a dead body. In this context must refer to the slaughter of all who have rebelled against God at the coming of Christ. Interesting. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Why are these people mourning? When they're seeing they're literally seeing Christ returning. They are mourning because can you imagine? Can you imagine if you were alive to see this? And you had chosen not to believe in Christ, and you were seeing this happening? Wouldn't you be mourning pretty bad?
No, yeah.
I mean, these jokers is upset. They're like, boy, we've done it now. This is it.
Yeah.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
You know what's interesting about that is it talks about Christ's return, and it doesn't really leave any room for doubt that people don't recognize what they're seeing then. Right?
Yeah.
But why was there the first time? Like, that's what I've always been confused about. Like, how did you look at the face of God, and how was that not...
You talking about in Jesus?
Yeah.
In the man Jesus?
Yeah. Because, like, when it describes the return, there ain't nothing written in there about, like, oh, there's, and there will still be doubters, and there will still be speculators, and it's like, well, yeah, I would imagine not. But then you think about the first time, it's like, how did you look upon the face of God and then not?
Because the first time God came in the first time Jesus came to earth, it was the antithesis of how man would think of God.
But I struggle with that. Like, you were looking at God.
Yeah.
How do you do that and not?
Because the image of Christ was not an image that mankind could comprehend God being. I know what you're saying. Jesus came the first time to suffer and be mocked and be killed. Think about this. Think about how crazy God's plan is to the human mind. God's plan to redeem his creation was to come to the earth and allow his creation to kill him. You can't make that up. Tell me, like, there ain't a story that will touch that. That's why everybody was so confused the first time God came to earth in Jesus Christ. That's why they were all so confused, because they're like, this can't be the creator of the universe, because he's allowing himself to be killed by what he says is his creation. It's impossible for this to be God. That don't compute.
Well, he also looked like them. That's another thing. When you see something that looks like you are, it's hard to give it, even though clearly Jesus did supernatural things. People look at it, be like, looking at just another human, like,
yeah,
that's God.
Especially looking at him on the cross.
Yeah.
Looking at him on the cross. But when Jesus comes the second time, it's going to compute. People going to be like, okay, yep, this is what I imagined God would look like. That's my explanation for that. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to go over today. What it's going to look like at the end of the age. And, of course, you could literally spend 10 podcasts breaking this down and looking at everything in context of other prophecies, both in the book of Revelations and the book of Daniel and the book of Ezekiel, to get the full picture and context of everything that was said by Jesus in Matthew 24. This was not, there's not time for an exhausted discourse on this particular chapter. But I just wanted to go over it today because it's one of my favorite places in Scripture. And to me, it's always, it's always encouraging to me to read this and to be reminded that ultimately Christ wins. And we have an inheritance with him in that victory. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. The other part of the conversation in this, I just want to get y'all's take on it. We're not going to go again into an exhaustive research of this. The other part everybody asks is when they hear about this 7-year period and the tribulation and all this is, will the believers in Christ prior to this traditionally believed 7-year tribulation period, will the believers of Christ be raptured prior to? So will there be any believers in Christ left on the earth at the beginning of this tribulation period? What do you guys think about that? Traditionally, it's called the rapture. What's y'all's take on that? Just fun conversation. Everybody wants to know. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have asked me what I think about
or post-trib.
what I think about the rapture of the church, meaning the body of Christ.
I don't know.
Well, what do you speculate?
I don't.
What the crap, Chili?
I think without knowing exactly where it's in, there's a section where it says a verse, the dead in Christ will rise. And I can't remember who was talking. One of y'all was talking the other day about time and how people maybe that's already passed away are just all of a sudden is going to be in heaven with everybody because we don't understand time.
Yeah.
And I think because we don't understand time, we can't understand the rapture as well. But I do feel, and I would have to research it to be able to articulate it better, that there is something there, the dead in Christ will rise, meaning the people who have already passed away, that those people are going to be lifted up with everyone else.
Bodily?
Huh?
Bodily?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With everyone else at the same time. And we're going to all, I don't think no one's going to be there no longer than anybody else. We're all going, whoa, Chili, however it goes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because you're no longer bound by time. Yeah.
But that deserves a lot more research to be able to talk about it. Truly, truly.
The interesting thing to me about this, and Chili, I agree with you. I don't know, man. And does the whatever you want to call it, the idea or the concept of the rapture, does it ultimately matter? Well, it doesn't really ultimately matter, regardless. But one thing that I do think about is, ushering in to usher in this tribulation period where we do have a global government, a global leader, a global religion. We have all these things set up. If the Lord removed all of his believers from this scenario, it would be a lot easier for that to happen. Like if there was nobody left on earth to say, hold up, guys. Look at what this says. We don't want to go in that direction. If there was no one left that believed in the Lord, was redeemed by Christ to do good, to warn the people around them, to preach the gospel. If there was, the church is a huge block for this stuff to happen. Like it's a huge speed bump. And if the Lord removed all Christians, followers of Christ, from the earth, imagine how much faster this could happen.
We also think that would make everyone go, huh?
Exactly. What would be the explanation for it? And could the explanation for that occurrence of all of the disappearance of all of these people, could the explanation for that lead into the setting up of this global government?
The aliens got them.
Yeah.
Y'all need to listen to what we've been telling you.
Yep.
We're going to protect you. Go stay in your house. We're going to figure this out.
So I could see how logically this idea of the rapture of the Church of Christ could very well logically set up this period of what is called the tribulation. You got any thoughts on it, Blake?
No, I've not studied this nearly enough to have any sort of speculation or intelligent conversation about it.
Well,
I need to study it more, but I just don't.
That's all right, Bubba.
That's just where I'm at with it.
That's all right. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys for tuning in. I don't really
got some super chats.
I don't really got much to tell y'all. We got some super chats. I bet.
Yeah.
All right, send it.
We got Brett Childers here coming in at $50.
Brett.
He said,
gone.
nothing like a good T-bone steak with a bit of sand on it. That came about the time you was talking about hoist is like a steak. You know?
I remember, yeah.
That was a ribeye, Brett. Thank you, Brett.
That he did not eat.
We got Richard Bray at $1.99.
Thank you, Richard.
Sean Wright gave £5, said love when you get into the Bible, and he also gave another £5, and he said Chili pulled international shipping just as the books get released. That's a turd move right there, son.
Dang, chill.
Chill, don't put
Sean,
up with
my
that.
man over
Don't
in
put
the
up with that, chill.
my man over across the pond, son, dropping
Yep.
them pounds on your head. You won't even send him a book, Chili.
Will not.
Davey High,
Crap, man.
he gave $50. He said, I believe in your ministry. Keep up the good work. Praying to join y'all for a ROP course next year.
I hope to see you, Davey. Thank you, man.
Derek Carswell gave $5, said, love how y'all can cut up with each other and then bring it in to deliver a good message. Of course, that's just my opinion. Love y'all. God bless.
Thank you, Derek. We love you too, man.
Clock and Floor gave $20. Said he got into shape to support his friend through a very dark time. Recently, they competed a 1-hour push-up challenge inspired by Chad and Chili, despite his vomiting and hitting a wall. Video on my channel.
Dang, man. Clock and Floor. Drop your channel in the comments, man. I want to watch that video.
Our push-up comp.
Let us know what that channel is. I want to watch that, man.
JMFM0911 $4.99. So basically, the Jews are awaiting their Messiah while the Christians await their Antichrist? ? Weird.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say there's some evidence of that.
Matt Bellantoni, 1999. Thank y'all for putting on a great race. I hope your words continue to reach and inspire individuals to grow. Encourage anyone listening to show up next year at Sloppy Floyd. Amazing group. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, awesome. Lord willing. Thank you, brother.
Clock and Floor coming in again at $9.99. Excited to continue growing through the ROP course and bringing the lessons learned to everyone around me. I'm grateful for Blake and Chad for accepting my application. So
Clock and Floor's coming?
Apparently, I don't know his real name, but apparently
Well, I tell you what, Clock and Floor, you better be ready, son. You thought that 1-hour push-up competition was rough. You going to come out to the rite of passage. I'm going to tell you, man, that's a legit training mission.
The last one I got is Alex Dell. He's $9.99. Glad I had a slow afternoon at the tat shop so I could catch y'all live for once. Thanks for y'all's honest search for truth and all the Bible study and discussion. Hope to make it out for an event one day.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. Bring your tattoo gun if you do come out for an event.
Right.
We'll have some last-minute tattoos.
You getting a new one?
Tattoo sesh.
Getting a new one dreamed up?
I'm always good for a tattoo, man. It ain't got to be. I mean, just whatever you want to tattoo, man.
I ain't got one in a good minute.
I got to
Yeah.
get me one. Yeah, I messaged my buddy the other day.
What you getting?
Downtown. I don't know.
What you getting?
All right. Outstanding, guys. Thank you guys so much. I got another goat walk coming out for y'all tomorrow. So watch that YouTube channel. It's a good one. We talk about chemtrails. We talk about people being obsessed with their health. We talk about update on shaky legs. We talk about all kinds of good stuff.
Sunglasses.
Sunglasses. Yeah, y'all get ready for that one. All right. We love you guys. Enough said.